The Fantastic Four is getting a lot of attention right now because of a design that's coming out of Marvel Rivals, the Overwatch clone game, which is just crushing it. And the design looks beautiful. And it's much better than any of the art I've seen from Marvel in a lot of years. Now, this is coming right off of Dan Slott's run. They just came out with a hardcover of his Reckoning War, which ended his run of about 46 issues and then some extra side issues as well. I just finished reading that last night. We'll get into it in just a little bit. I actually didn't hate Dan Slott's run as much as Dan Slott is insufferable on social media and has just been way out there. A lot of this had some good elements, and it was almost a great run. And I was thinking about this overnight, just thinking, gosh, this actually had all the things I hate about modern comics in it, except it also had some really good things too. And I wish they would just leave those little things out and do the things that are fun and make for science fiction comics like the Fantastic Four, which used to be the world's greatest comic magazine. It's gotten way worse under the new guy who's like turned Johnny Storm into just this creepy, furry, loving whatever. That's another story. But we'll talk about this in just a bit because I didn't actually hate Dan Slott's run, and the Reckoning War was a decent event. Just kind of ended flatly, and we'll get into why in just a moment. All right, my name's John Delarose. Hit the like and subscribe button, everybody, as we talk about all things comics. Really appreciate you for being here. I am a comic writer myself. You can get on my newsletter, and I would encourage you to do so. You get a fantasy novel, a science fiction novel, and a graphic novel, the first 66 pages of my Flying Sparks. This is my superhero universe. I've got some cosmic stuff that feels very much in line with maybe what you'd like out of Fantastic Four in this universe. And so start here, get in on this. I've got a bunch of sci-fi books coming out this year as well. Very prolific as an indie writer and blacklisted from the mainstream. Check out this for now. And Flying Sparks has 15 issues, so if you like these first 3, you can grab the rest on my online bookstore as well. Thank you for being there, and thank you for subscribing. And, of course, I love to connect with you guys, so definitely hop on here. All right, so this is an interesting run. 46 issues. I think he wanted to go kind of 50-something, and he went 50-something if you put all the weird tie-in issues together. There were side things that he ended up doing. But for some reason, they just canned it at 46. And this wrapped up with this Reckoning War sort of thing. Now, when he started his run, it was actually pretty well received in comic shops. I actually talked to people in comic shops who were like, oh, Dan Slott's run's actually pretty good. And it fell off pretty quickly. Now, the first couple of arcs were very, very interesting. He actually progressed the characters in ways that people liked. I thought he had a really good concept in those early issues where Doom was using Galactus as a battery to power his latest attempt to take over things. Pretty cool stuff. I thought it was very, very fun. I really like how he married Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters. That should have been done for a long time ago. Very, very solid stuff. But it got kind of weird. And so there's a couple weird spots on this where Johnny went out to this alternate reality and met this hawk girl type of person who's of course brown skinned because you got to do that these days. They added in that universe, they were side characters that were of course showing lesbian stuff to try to virtue signal that just didn't need to be there, and it just makes this a non-family book at that point. And it's gosh, like I said, at the beginning of this, he did everything I hate about modern comics at some point within this run, but it wasn't that often. And so the Galactus line was cool, the Ben Grimm marriage was cool, good progressions at that point. I loved all the stuff with Reed Richards and his kids that developed through this run as well. They had some very interesting middle arcs that were fun. Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters actually adopt these kids and that kind of fight with each other and end up with some fun in this. So there's some good character progressions and expansion of the Fantastic Four family, which works really, really, really well throughout this entire thing. The overall was all right. Now, like I said, they added in the creepy lesbian stuff, and it's why? Of course, you know why. And that went by the wayside. He had it for a couple issues and then didn't do it for the rest of the run. It's he was forced to put it in there or something like that. Or maybe he just did it because he wanted to virtue signal real quick. That was an interesting concept, even though I don't really want Johnny in this relationship, to be honest. And he ends without it, so it's fine. This concept of binding with a soulmate from another deal, another world was pretty interesting and decent science fiction sort of addition to it overall, and was enjoyable. Johnny Storm ends up like not being able to turn off his flame at one point and like burns really hot, and like he ends up in a crisis mode, which is a lot of fun as well. Good stuff through that. And here's what he says about it. He says, by now when people read this, they know where I'm going. They know why. How fast I can write is a big factor. I guess he's going slow on this, being he can't do a monthly title. I would have loved to have stayed on FF longer. I would have loved to have write stories about the FF until the end of time. I got hit with the big notes, and on the way, I got to do stories I didn't even know I wanted to do. So I guess there were some editorial notes that messed up some things in this run on this level. But this is pretty interesting. And, you know, as much as Dan Slott, again, it is insufferable, you know, his Spider-Man stuff kind of went off the rails at a lot of times. This ended up mostly pretty good. Now, at the end of it, there were a couple weird things in this Reckoning War, which I thought was pretty... This was an interesting plot, too. The Watchers... Back in time, the reason they're Watchers pretty much is because they actually gave the ultimate nullifier to this old species who now are called like the Reckoning, and those guys are coming back and they're going to destroy the universe, and the Watchers have to like decide whether they're going to stop it or not. And he did such a cool thing that, like, what a cool concept. And of course, the Fantastic Four gets involved in it. Doom gets involved in it. A bunch of other characters get involved in it from the past. You actually get She-Hulk out there with it, and it ties into Dan Slott's old She-Hulk run. Because he kind of sprinkled in an idea in there that ended up coming to fruition here, which always, when you tie continuity like that together, it feels really, really good. So kudos to Dan Slott for doing that kind of stuff. I know this is not a popular take, and I don't care. I just tell the truth about what I see in comics here. That was well done. Now, a couple other things got weird within the Reckoning War, which I'll get into in just a moment. I feel like it was dragged out too long. A 6-issue series with 2 other side issues that tie into it. It felt like it should have been a 4-issue series, and that they really dragged it to try to like extend it to a couple more issues to make a bigger event out of it. I hate that about modern comics. That's one thing that doesn't work very well at all. Now, as they deal with this galactic-wide threat, there's some stuff where like we knew that Ben Grimm was going to die at some point, maybe. Reed Richards is threatened with death through this, and you don't know if it's actually going to happen. Now, at this point within comics, it's like when people threaten deaths of characters, it's like it's hard to care anymore because of the way they've done things too many times over the years. But it is something pretty interesting as it builds, and there are big personal stakes for the characters that work really, really well. Now, unfortunately, as this all goes along, they do the other thing that I hate in terms of comics, and as it builds up, cool concept again. I like the run. I've liked all the character development over the series so far, but Dan Slott literally does the thing where he just resets the entire universe at the very end of it. The last 2 issues are a complete reset, and then a denouement, which slows things down again. Like I said, it was dragged out too long. The Watcher, after they figure things out, ends up with this power where he can just like rebuild the universe. He brings back people from the dead. Everything's back to normal. And so it's like reset for the next person who's coming in writing, so he doesn't have to deal with continuity anymore. The Hawk Girl, who's been Johnny's soulmate, goes and marries somebody else with Johnny's blessing at the end of it, and Johnny just gives her up. It's like all the cool character stuff, just like, except for the Ben Grimm and Alicia Masters, just got completely thrown by the wayside and gone. And it's like, painful. They just retconned the entire series of this for no reason, and it's gone again. And that's a thing I hate about this. A next thing was like, again, a weird virtue signal that came at the end. Reed Richards ends up having a half sister who's like black, and not only like kind of like a little black, but she's like way dark black. It's like, wait a minute, how did she have a half white father then? Like, this doesn't make sense. It was clearly just to add diversity to things. And then, you know, she fights with Reed Richards and is a stronger female lead in things in that last issue, which is really cringy to read for a bit. They finally come together at the end, and this is where it gets bad again. Reed Richards and her come together over a mutual hatred of their father, and it ends up like this therapy session where Reed Richards is like complaining about his upbringing. It's like, stop. Not every character needs to do this, and that doesn't fit with the Reed Richards character at all. So I really didn't need that there as well. So I'm complaining a lot, and those are all the bad things that happen. But again, this is over 46 issues, and most of it, I would say like 70-80% of it is like eminently good, like Fantastic Four fare. I actually liked this way better than anything in the recent eras. I thought the Fraction stuff was a dud. that came after the Hickman stuff. The Hickman stuff to me is super overrated. While he sets up some cool world building stuff all the way around, I don't feel like it felt like a very good coherent story. I don't know why people hold that up so well. Maybe just because it's not woke, I guess. But I've never really been a Hickman fan too much. The current stuff's unreadable with Ryan North, unfortunately. He's somebody who should not have been given the property. This is like the only like bright spot in the Fantastic Four in like the last 20 years, because they actually canceled the series for a while. So this was almost, you just remove a few elements, like the weird lesbian stuff in there. You remove the Reed Richards plot line there at the end. You don't do this whole universe reset, and you actually make it so that there's consequences that actually like fall out from the Watcher storyline, which was, again, that's a really cool backstory for the Watchers that was really built very nicely by Slott. You just let the stuff progress. This could have been one of the best Fantastic Four runs of all time, and it ended up just being like, okay, I liked most of it, but there were some bad parts to it because of the way it ended. All right. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this, my friends. Hit the like and subscribe button. What are your favorite Fantastic Four runs? Let me know down below. Love to chat with you. Please get on my newsletter, check out my comic books and novels. And of course, I've got a bunch of great science fiction new releases coming this year. They're so good. The best is yet to come, guys. Get on here now, read some free books, and of course, support independent comics. We'll be back soon.